Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and a wonderful weekend. We'd love to welcome you to today's webinar presented by the DiJulius Group, Tricks to Make It All Stick with Customer Experience Consultant Jess Pischel. In today's session, we're going to be talking about implementation, which is crucial when you are leading any project, but especially a customer experience initiative. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few little housekeeping items. Today we are using Zoom webinar, so don't worry, we can't see or hear you. So if the dogs are barking or you're working in your PJs, just sit back, relax, and get comfy. Drop us a note in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from today. It is a rainy and about to be snowy day here in Cleveland, Ohio, so I hope it is nice and warm wherever you are. At the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a few tools. Chat is where you can chat with other attendees or reach myself if you run into any issues during the webinar. Also, if you have any aha moments or takeaways that really resonated with you, drop those in the chat because we love to hear what really hits with you during these webinars. Jess will also have some time at the end to take your questions about anything on implementation or any of our 10 commandments. So if you have questions for Jess to answer, simply hover on the bottom of your screen, look for that Q&A little bubble and throw your question in there. You can also upvote another attendee's question or comment to elaborate if you have a similar question. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce our customer experience consultant, Jess Pischel.
Thank you, Nicole. Hey, everyone. I wish I could see all your faces and I wish this was in person. But hey, I'm happy to do this and I'm excited to share some tricks to make it all stick. So, I really do get to work with the best clients in the world. I'm so lucky to be a consultant with the DiJulius Group. Most of my clients even become really great friends, even after the contract expires. I actually bought my home from one of my clients. I don't think they are on right now, but shout out to Mark Bush and Bush Funeral Homes. So I'm very lucky that most of my clients are super bought in right when we do the project kickoff. But there are a few individuals or departments or employees within some organizations that really struggle with the concept or maybe give some pushback along the way. So when you are making a change or implementing a new project, it is inevitable that you will have some individuals who, quite frankly, just don't like change or are perhaps resistant to the plan. And that's because, people are uncomfortable with change. I think everyone is. So this makes getting company-wide buy-in difficult, right? When you're trying to convince people that this project or this initiative is going to improve the service that you're providing or the return on the investment, whatever the situation may be that you're trying to make or advocate for when it comes to a change. So if you look at our 10 commandments of methodology, which I'm sure some of you are very familiar with, implementation and execution is probably one of the most important pieces here, because if you don't implement all of the amazing work that you created in the workshop, then you kind of wasted your time, energy, and resources in even doing that workshop and creating that content. So I always tell my clients that the workshops are hard, creating the content is hard, but what's more difficult is making it stick long after the creation process and really making sure that what you have created is implemented and executed appropriately. And so I want to share with you several key actions that you can take to help ensure that the implementation of your project or training program will be successful and you will get that company-wide buy-in that you're working so hard for. Implementation and execution is commandment number 6 in our trademark methodology. And I'm super excited to share with you some of the ways that my most successful clients have achieved full company-wide implementation throughout their entire brand. So how are you going to make it all stick? And if you watched my session in the customer service revolution, I gave you high-level examples of what this looks like. And today I'm going to dive a little bit deeper and talk about some scenarios that go along with this. So to recap, and for those of you who maybe didn't join in the first version of this, first is you have to include key players early and often. The WIFM, what's in it for me? Love that acronym. Beta test, number 3. Number 4 is walk the talk. And number 5 is huddle up. So number 1, include key players early and often. And why is this important? Well, you want to take into everyone's consideration early on, so that way if there's any criticism or objections, you can address them. You can approach them immediately and redirect the conversation. This is your opportunity to make sure that you are assertive in addressing those instances where objections are forming. And that's important for 2 reasons. Small problems have a bad habit of swelling into larger ones when they're not addressed early on. And second, you don't want any of those unhappy employees poisoning the minds of other employees who are really excited about the project and really stand behind what you're trying to achieve. So that's really important that you invite them into your workshop or into your project, whatever that will look like, and address those objections. I've seen it happen before with clients that I've worked with, and it's a struggle later on to get them bought in if they feel that they weren't included early on. Now I like to have my clients do a mid-level managers meeting on a monthly basis to really check in and give them status updates, because they are going to be helping you and coaching your team members in the moment to make sure that that part of your project implementation is working, or if it's not, bringing that back to you and saying, hey, this is what's not working about this project. So they're going to be really important to you. And so with that, you want to make sure that you have a really close touch point with them. So mid-level management, you want to get them involved and make sure you're addressing any questions, also giving them some internal praise for helping you roll out the project. And so some of those individuals may be a steering committee. You want to create a steering committee that wants to be involved and is really passionate about the customer experience, for instance. You want to make sure that these individuals really want to improve the internal culture and are enthusiastic about your topic. So don't be afraid to diversify your steering committee. Get some newbies on the steering committee, representation from different departments or maybe different levels of experience. I also always recommend to include 1 or 2 emerging leaders on the project. That way you can, 1, delegate some project work out so it doesn't all fall on your shoulders, but those individuals will become ambassadors to the project as well. So how do you formulate your steering committee? It's important to understand that the steering committee is the governing body of the project, right? They have the ability to make decisions regarding marketing material, budget, dates, timelines, all of those things. And you need their blessing before anything that you create goes to print. And I say goes to print, meaning it's final, right? You want to make sure you have the blessing of the steering committee, because those individuals aren't the decision makers. They're going to be making decisions on budgeting for your launch or marketing collateral or swag. So it's important to make sure that you select these individuals appropriately. And also I always recommend 1 or 2 emerging leaders. They can help own the project and they get their peers bought in too. So I say save 1 or 2 seats on that steering committee for an emerging leader. And you can select those emerging leaders after your workshop. So when I go in to host a workshop with my clients, if there's one or two people that are just extremely energetic and passionate about this project and they're speaking up and they're wanting to be involved, I always recommend that you invite those people. Invite those people to either be on the committee or to be an ambassador for the project. Those people are just super important when you're trying to get buy-in. And also, they're good for project delegation. So if there's tasks that need to be done, you can always give these individuals those tasks to help move the project along more quickly. So when I worked with Camargo, this is one of my clients. They are a pharmaceutical consulting firm. So they, most of their team members are PhD scientists, brilliant people. But they weren't necessarily completely focused on customer experience, or many of them had admitted they never essentially been trained in soft skills or how to build rapport or establish a relationship or connection. So although these people are geniuses, super smart, it was a bit of a challenge for them to develop relationships with their clients. You know, they would just focus mostly on the knowledge that they had rather than building the relationship and establishing rapport. And so after working with them, they were able to see that client experience was their number one priority, and it was directly impacting their clients. And so it was just a great way for people to see, you know, where they were and where they ended up. And that, you know, even though people didn't necessarily love the change process throughout, they had great results. And so now they're even more proactive, scheduling regular meetings with their clients, whereas before they would maybe hide behind an email or wait for the client to reach out to them first. And so now they really own that communication pattern. And those ambassadors or advocates of the program included some of those PhD scientists that I was talking about. So they got them involved early and often. So they invited those individuals to their workshop. And I want to tell you how to handle things post-workshop. So let's assume that you had a workshop and you've established all this great material, and now you're ready to know what's next. So you have to finalize that content, right? You have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. You have to make sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, that everyone is going to understand. It's super clear, concise. There's nothing to be left for question. And that can take a bit of time, right? You want to have everyone's eyes on it, but you also have to get their blessing, but you want to take it and run with it yourself. So I've had clients do it many different ways, but essentially you want to make sure your final content looks like it came from the same author. Because in the workshop, you're going to be getting ideas and content from a lot of different people. And it's all going to be great content, but it's going to look like it came from different authors, and it's going to be a little clumsy. So you want to finalize that content and clean it up. And you also want to name your initiative. So something that your team members are passionate about, whether it be your world-class customer experience journey or the DiJulius group way, whatever it is, you want to make sure you name that initiative. So what are you currently calling your team members? Are they just that? Are they team members? Are they employees? Are they customer experience advocates? Are they customer service representatives? Like, what are they? Because you want them to have pride in what they're doing. So you want to really name your team members. Make sure you give them a cool name or a strong name that really entails what they're doing. And that goes for the customers too. What are you calling your customers? Are you calling them guests? Are you calling them members? Like, what are you calling them? Are you calling them clients? So you want to establish and make sure everyone's on the same page as far as what we're calling these things. Now you're ready to prepare for your launch. So what do you need to do to launch your initiative? So you have to establish what marketing collateral you're going to use. And I have some examples that I'm going to share with you. But Credo cards, these are a lot of our clients like Credo cards because they're cheap. They're easy to implement, they're super simple. If you need to change things a year from now, it's not totally expensive to do. Signage Do you have signs throughout the office space, or is it the desktop background of everyone's computer, or on our login page? What does that look like? You want to get your word out there, get it in front of everyone, make sure that people can see it. The more often they see it, the more often it's able to resonate with them. So here's an example of some Credo cards, and these are great takeaways, just small, about the size of an index card, and have all of your information on there. So now you're ready to launch. And we always recommend that you start with a keynote of what is customer experience? Why is it important? And John DiJulius's books have great content for your launch when you're prepping for your launch. So we say start with the keynote, make sure everyone's on the same page, because although you understand customer experience and you're extremely passionate about it, not everyone in the audience is going to be. So you have to do some convincing here. Why is it important? Why are we doing this? What does it look like? You have to be totally clear on these things. And you have to explain the workshop, explain what you did in the workshop, explain that, this isn't just content that we threw on a Credo card and printed out and put in the office break room, but it's, we worked hard at this content. Like, we worked tirelessly at this content. We were arguing over this word versus that word. And really, you're going to have to paint the picture for what that workshop looked like, just in case everyone in the audience didn't attend your workshop. And then you're going to want to have those tools in place and ready to go. Now, you don't need to give all the tools right at the launch. I actually recommend that giving one tool at the launch is a good thing. So maybe it's a Credo card, and maybe next week it's the desktop background on computers. And the week after that, it's possibly the login screen changes and the information's there. Or next week it's the mouse pad, whatever it may be. Kind of sprinkle those tools in throughout your implementation process. So I want to share with you a picture of the launch that I did with one of my clients, and when they launched their nevers and their always statements. So you can see they had fun with this one: red nevers, green always, and they acted these out and dramatized them. And it was just really fun for the audience. It was engaging for the audience. It wasn't a lecture that the team members had to attend, but it was fun to get to see your team members up in front of the room, kind of making a fool of themselves, acting these things out. So have fun with it. That's what's going to be memorable. Be creative, have those conversations in the steering committee. Like, what can we do to wow our people? I've seen more recently, since people can't be in person, that clients of mine have the launch during lunch and ordered everyone a pizza. So the pizza showed up like right before they had their virtual launch. And that was a cool touch for the employees to get. So it's memorable, make it fun, make it memorable, and brainstorm ideas on how to get there with your steering committee. So after you've launched, you want to make sure that you've rolled it out to all locations and staff. We always recommend filming the launch so that you have it and you can use it for new hires, or you can use it to re-show your team members on an annual basis. And it's really easy with Zoom nowadays. You can just record the webinar and you have it, and you can show that, on an annual basis or semi-annual basis to kind of re-energize it and make it stick. Customer experience training and consulting is like deodorant. If you don't put it on every day, it gets smelly. You have to talk about it every day. You have to keep these tools in front of your people, keep the marketing collateral out there. And then also, it's a great idea to measure, to use metrics and key performance indicators to get some individuals on board. Like, hey, it's working. These are our numbers and we've proven results. It's great to see those numbers and keep revisiting those to make sure that you're improving constantly. And then finally, the certification process. You want to make sure that everything you just spent all of that time on planning and creating is memorable for the people who are going to be implementing it. So you want to have a certification process in place that confirms that they know what you just launched to them, they're doing it, and they're doing it consistently. Some of these things are behavioral changes that we're asking of our people. And so we want to make sure that they totally understand it and that they've been able to digest what we've implemented. So here's an example of some always and never statements as a side panel on their computer screen. Another way for people to see it is potentially a mouse pad, or Starbucks used to have their customer service information on the inside of their apron. Where are your employees going to see this most? Is it a poster? Is it something more? How can we get the word out, and how can we make it stick? Okay, so next, the what's in it for me. Your team is likely juggling several different projects or initiatives all at once. So this can't be everyone's most important thing all the time, but it has to be yours as the implementer. So it's important to be sensitive to that while describing exactly how investing their time and energy and resources into your project will essentially benefit them. So many of my clients have developed an incentive associated with their project, so people can celebrate those results. And so I recommend that. Definitely incentivize where we can, and a recognition program. So here is Coit Cleaning Company. They have an internal Coit Bucks in which people can redeem for really great customer service survey results. And so they have a ton of cool prizes, and it's just an additional motivation to accomplish some of the things that you're implementing. This is a credit union that I worked with. This is a humble brag client of mine. They use an intranet system called Kazoo, and it resembles a social media platform where employees can acknowledge and celebrate anytime a coworker goes above and beyond. And then there are high fives that they get. So each employee gets five high fives per month, and they can give it out to their colleagues. So every time they receive a high five, they earn points that can be redeemed for prizes. So Kazoo is an additional platform. And so it doesn't have to be an additional platform though. It could be, we use Slack at the DiJulius group. We use a platform called Slack, and we have a client, what are they called? Client channel, where we can all give high fives to each other and tell each other our best practices, and give our shout outs for our clients too. So it doesn't always have to be a fee associated with it. Just have one place where all the information goes. But here's what their Kazoo platform looks like, and you send recognition and you get rewarded. So they have some best practices for how that looks and how that's done. So you want to make sure that you're selling it to everyone in the organization with the benefits. So tell them what the benefits are going to be of spending 2 days in a workshop with you. What can they see out of it? What's in it for them? And this is geared toward the leadership team, right? Executive team wants to know, what am I going to get from this workshop? What can be expected? So these are some examples of what you can use and share with them to get their buy-in to do the workshop or to do the program. So tell them that there's going to be some company-wide buy-in. You're going to be hand selecting people from multiple departments. It's a great opportunity for everyone to work together. Sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and same goes for sales versus service. So if you can get these individuals in the same room to talk about some of these challenges in a healthy way, you'll be able to solve these problems that maybe people weren't aware about or didn't know existed before. So it does bring awareness to those service defects. What does your small piece in the company play in the full role? You know, if you do this or if you don't do this, how does it affect someone else in a different department? So it brings awareness to those service defects, and it helps with those awareness to those service defects. We're able to create a new set of standards to reduce those inconsistencies, to make sure that those things aren't happening. If I ultimately know how good or bad I do my job impacts someone else down the line, there's more accountability on my end to do it the right way now. So there's going to be emphasis on experiential opportunities. These customer experience workshops allow us to be creative and think of and come up with ways to provide experiential moments for our customers. And that's what's going to keep them coming back, buying more, having our referral rates go up, having our customer satisfaction scores rise. All of those things are really, really important. So as an outcome of this workshop, you're going to have a training manual or a new set of standards. So this is, if you don't have it already, or even if you do, edits and revisions to these training manuals and standards. And then interdepartmental cohesion, really making sure the departments are talking to each other and making sure that everyone's on the same page as far as roles and responsibilities when dealing with the customer, anything that affects the customer. And then I'm going to come back to those KPIs, those key performance indicators, the CX metric improvements, the customer experience metric improvements. We want to see growth and results here. So making sure that your executive team knows that you're going to be measuring these things is super important from an implementation standpoint. All right, number 3, beta test. So we want to make sure that we are collecting data and sharing those results and celebrating those successes. And we recommend the case study format. So if you don't have current key performance indicators that are going to tell you, yes, this project was successful, no, this project was not successful, you need to establish those in the very, very beginning so that you can constantly have a pulse on them. So I want to share some key performance indicators with you that we recommend. And maybe it's one of these numbers, maybe it's 2 of these numbers that you really measure and update the team on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis to indicate that the project is successful. But the first that we recommend is Net Promoter Score. And Net Promoter Score is used by a majority of my clients because you, regardless of what industry you're in, it's the same question every time. And you can quite literally compare yourself to the Ritz-Carlton or the Chick-fil-A's of the world because it's the same question throughout any industry. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend company XYZ to a family member or friend? That will give you your net promoter score. And you can measure your net promoter score as a benchmark in your industry or against your competition. Maybe it's customer retention or your average ticket or average check cost, the number of tickets or checks that you have. Referrals are a good way to know that your customer experience program is working. Are your team members rebooking, your clients or customers rebooking or re-signing to continue to work with you? Maybe it's by new leads per month, quarter, or year, or your lead conversion ratio, or your re-sign ratio, or the average length of contract. Perhaps it's your customer satisfaction scores, or maybe it's your complaints or comments, negative versus positive. And then of course, social reviews, your Google, your Yelps, your Facebooks. What does our scores look like there as well? So remember when I talked about naming your customer experience program? Well, this automotive dealership that I worked with, Alcera Auto Plaza, located in Grand Blanc, Michigan, chose to name their customer service initiative the WCCE, the World Class Customer Experience. So they established their metrics in sales and in service. That was their key performance indicators for them, and it was NPS. And so they increased by 5 points in sales and by 4 points in service. So for anyone who measures their NPS, you know that even moving the needle 1 or 2 points in your NPS score is difficult. You can have appreciation for how far this company has come in 5 points. Like, that is a big deal. It takes a long time to improve your NPS score, especially when you have the amount of customers that they do. So that was a huge success for them. And also their market was down 1% in total vehicles sold in 2018 versus 2019. However, Alcera was able, they were slightly up in vehicle sales, which tells us that they were doing a better job of retaining their customers and even picking up a few new ones. So we're making the same were making more with the same amount of vehicles sold. So their market share from 18 to 19 was up 18%, which is a huge, huge win. So just moving that needle a little bit and measuring at your different stores or locations to get everyone involved and bought in. So these are great results, and they were able to share them with their other team members and really get everyone bought in who maybe wasn't in the start. So I want to cover walk the talk again. So find those positive individuals, get them on board, circulate those positive stories that relate to your initiative, because people remember stories. So storytelling is one of the most powerful means that leaders have to influence, teach, and inspire our people. So use those stories to make those that have implemented your project a hero. And that's the goal here. Once you've implemented the project, someone needs to be accountable for it, and someone has to be so invested in the project that they can't sleep at night. And that's probably you. That's probably why you're on this webinar right now. But I'm sure many of you have critics or cynics that you're having trouble getting buy-in from. So Nicole, if you wouldn't mind, can you please launch the poll to the audience members about where they're having struggle getting their implementation? Thanks. So what is your biggest struggle when it comes to implementation? Is it those executive leaders? Is it mid-level? Is it frontline? Or maybe it's other? Go ahead and take a moment and tell me, where is your biggest struggle when it comes to implementation? All right, so, we have some frontline employees here. Buy-in from executive leadership at 17%, mid-level management at 25%, and buy-in from frontline team members, 50%. And then there's an other listed there. Okay, yeah, that seems pretty common. Usually if you've invested in this project, your executive leadership is on board because they are, they're invested in it, literally. But sometimes, yeah, there could be some pushback from your frontline employees. So those frontline people are probably critical or just cynical. So really identify, are they your critics? Are they challenging you just because they don't understand it? Or are they cynical? They're never going to understand it. Then you may have to make the decision or recommend that the decision be made that this isn't the right place for them anymore. And that could be hard. That can be challenging for you to come to terms with, right? We don't want to eliminate people, but if this is the direction our company is going, then this may be the time to do so. So those critics, you should be investing your time in them, solving the problem by identifying where they're resistant, why they're resistant, because there may be something that you're not thinking of, right? If you implement something in the onboarding process and it later affects the implementation of that client, then that may be an area of resistance, and that may be why they're resisting it. So it's important to have conversations with those people, and those critics may turn around and be your biggest advocates once they can just clearly understand. But your cynic will never change, right? The cynic, maybe this isn't the right place for them anymore. So I want to make sure those two pieces are clear when you're thinking about why you're not getting that buy-in. So when you're training your content, you want to make sure that you're identifying those different audiences that may require different training. So when you roll out some of your content, never say no, always focus on what you can do, may look different in each department. Maybe saying no in service looks a bit different than saying no in sales, and navigating that challenging conversation. So think about those different instances and how it will look different in different departments, because your training will likely need to be tailored accordingly. And there may be different documents for training different departments as well. So there may be different scenarios or scripting that you use in the training process for those different audience members. So when you're implementing your program, you want to make sure it's so clear for people. Again, that mid-level management, make sure it's so clear for them, because if there's any point of questioning or if it's unclear or clumsy, it's going to be an excuse for them not to implement it. And we do not want that to happen. So really lay out what you want them to do when. So here's the dates that we're going to be looking at our content, organized by week, organized by topic, and then confirm that we've mastered that topic in that week. So there's some accountability here for everyone. And we're going to get to huddles in just a moment, but this worked really well for this client of mine because they were able to identify what are the frequently asked questions we're going to be getting when we roll out XYZ. So the steering committee came up with a list of frequently asked questions and provided it to mid-level management so that they felt comfortable and confident when they were receiving those questions from their employees, right? No one ever wants to look silly or look like they don't know the answer to something. And so you want to provide and equip your people with the tools they need to properly roll out your content. And it takes time to do this, right? This takes time to do. And this is the accountability. So they broke it down to external customer service focuses and internal customer service focuses. And then they made sure that they put their list of resources. Here's where you can go to find these tools to help implement our project. So it's really clear cut. The leaders were told exactly what they needed to do in what week, at what time. And so of course it allowed for your own style and your own personality to show through. But this was created with a sense of, hey, we're all over the country. We're in all different locations. We want to make sure that everyone has a tool that they can visit to really understand how to implement this content. Other companies have chose to keep it much more simple. Hey, here's your focus of the day. Here's what you need to be talking about. Here's your challenge issues. Make sure that people can really talk through these things. And then they, again, make sure it's clear. Make sure it's clear what you want your team members to deliver and when. So everyone in our organization is talking about the same thing at the same time, regardless of location, department, tenure, everyone's responsible for it. So clearly lay it out in a calendar format. So you want to create your calendar for your huddles, and each week has a different customer experience focus. Make sure those huddle leaders are doing these huddles consistently and timely, and utilize those steering committee members to make sure we have a pulse on the progress of those huddles, and share your best practices, right? One team may be doing huddles a little bit differently. We don't want to lose people's personalities in the delivery of these huddles, but maybe another individual can really benefit for what's working well in another department. So share those, have your huddle leaders, identify those huddle leaders and have those share those best practices. So here are our huddle best practices that I share with my clients, and I want to share them with you so that you know your huddles are successful. So they're ran daily by the huddle leader. Recommend at the beginning of your project having the same leader deliver the content. So you are clear and know that what's getting out there is created by you and is consistent. That's the most important thing in the beginning, consistency. And you want to make sure that everyone contributes. And in the same breath, I'll tell you that huddles should be no more than 5 to 7 minutes. So your huddles will look different in each department and in each industry, because maybe not everyone's working the same hours or not available at the same times. but your huddles should be no more than 5 to 7 minutes. Anything longer than that is a meeting. And it's quite common in a huddle to have something come up that deserves more time and attention. And just, you need to parking lot that item and schedule a follow-up time to discuss that content. Everyone should contribute. As a huddle leader, you should be more of a facilitator, less of a lecturer. So you want to facilitate that, ask everyone for their input, call people out, get their buy-in. Hey, Nicole, what do you think about that? Or John, tell me a great customer service story that happened this week. Like, you have to be comfortable as a huddle leader putting people on the spot, because otherwise you're going to be lecturing the whole time, and you'll lose people. They have to be positive, right? These can quickly become sessions where we complain the whole time about how our bad customers are, or you should have heard about this customer that I had the other day. And we don't want them to get there, right? We want to keep them positive and customer centric, and staying on topic, especially at the beginning. You want to stay consistent to that calendar that you created. Now, it only takes 2 to huddle. If you spend your time trying to make sure you have 100% participation 100% of the time, you're going to be doing it forever, because it's never going to happen, right? The best time for you may not be the best time for me. You're always going to have someone who's, on a call or in a meeting or taking the day off or on vacation. So if you wait for the best time, it's never going to happen. So just remember, it only takes 2 to huddle. Stay consistent. You're doing them right if they're the best part of people's day and not the worst part of people's day, right? You want to make sure they're fun, they're energetic. And I've seen some of my team members come to our huddles with an energetic song or a positive quote. Like, start your huddles differently, so people feel that that they're not just the same thing every day. But keep them exciting, and even pass the baton to those emerging leaders. Again, get some new energy in those huddles and keep them exciting. And so here's another huddle guide. It says exactly what we're supposed to work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, right? Keep it clear, keep it simple, so that people can understand, and so that you're consistent in what you're rolling out. Here's another example from Alcera, what I talked about earlier. So this is clearly laid out. Week 1, day 1. You see that at the top of the screen, week 1, day 1. So it's exactly what they have to cover, the time that it should take, and then an engaging activity for at the end of the huddle. So my clients always tell me that implementing those daily huddles is the hardest thing they've ever done, but it's the most rewarding thing they've ever done. It's the most difficult, but it's the best decision that they made in regards to the customer experience journey. I totally agree. I completely agree. It is a challenge to get everyone to commit to adding another meeting on their calendar, because everyone is so busy, but the results are worth it. And be flexible with your huddles. For many different reasons, they may look different now in when we're all virtual, but they can be done, and we should have these our internal touch points that will ultimately improve our customer experience. So it will be extremely powerful if you have 100% of your employees sharing positive customer service, positive customer-centric stories for just 5 to 7 minutes each day. It really does have a huge impact on your team. It keeps it makes it stick. It keeps everyone on the same page. It's a great touch point. So here are your 5 tips to make it all stick. And we will definitely be available here for you if you have any questions on the webinar or any content that I've created. And if you want to dive in deeper with this, you can definitely schedule a meeting. I recommend scheduling a meeting with Claudia. If you want to see these same results that Alcera Autoplaza had and Camargo had and Lush Cosmetics, these clients definitely were very great and success stories. If you want that same success story within your organization, I highly recommend scheduling that call with Claudia, and we can talk more.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everybody learned something new today. And if you have any questions for Jess, please go ahead and throw those in the Q&A or the chat, and she'd be happy to answer them. But Jess, something that I know we get asked a lot, a lot of people are interested in working through all of our 10 commandments, top to bottom, 1 through 10. And they ask, how quickly can I implement all of these? And that's not such a simple answer.
Yeah, it's definitely not. So some of our clients benefit um, from starting at commandment 3 rather than commandment 1. It's just what is where do you want to see results right away? Like where should you start? And that could be even a challenging question before we get to implementation. It's like, where do I start? Well, you want to start with something that's simple, that's easy to implement, because that's how you're going to get the buy-in, and then jump to the other more challenging pieces. But the quick wins are important at the beginning of a consulting engagement, because people really want to feel bought in and feel like their investment is paying off early on. So I always like to identify some things quickly, but there's not just one answer for everyone, unfortunately. For that question, it looks a little bit different in each organization, but with each 1 to 2 day workshop, it's typically 3 to 6 months of launching that content. So it takes about 3 months after the workshop to really get everything finalized, to get your plan together, to prep for launch. And so yeah, not exactly an easy question to answer, but we say for every 2 days of our workshops, it's about 3 to 6 months of rollout and support to make sure that it sticks and you have the tools you need to make it stick.
And some of you might be wondering, you might have in your head, where you're lacking in your department, but you might want to see where your organization is at as a whole, or maybe you're not familiar with our commandments and where your organization ranks. So there's a free tool that you can use as an individual. And I'm going to throw it in the chat for you. It's called the CSAT, Customer Service Aptitude Test. And you can answer some questions about your organization and how you handle things within your organization. And it's going to rank you based on our 10 commandments. So we use that tool a lot when we're working on proposals for companies to see exactly where they should start, because they might already excel in one area over the other. So I'm going to throw that in chat, but I know Rebecca has a question for you, Jess, about the balance of delighting employees versus delighting with customers. So which do you start with? Which comes first? And can you have one without the other?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rebecca. So your customers will never be happier than your employees are. So you have to treat our employees, it has to be a great place for them to work. They have to be happy and delighted to serve the customer. Otherwise, the customer is never going to be happy. So I do think that can't really have one without the other, right? That your employees have to be happy, otherwise they're not going to be able to deliver great service. So I would say, yeah, you got to start internally, make sure that you give them the tools, give them those soft skill tools to provide great customer service, and make sure you're coaching them in the moment, and make sure you're getting their feedback too. Sometimes when I'm working with the client, I directly have one-on-one conversations with those customer facing team members so that I can really understand, like, what are your challenges? What would make this the best place you've ever worked? What can I do to make sure that you have everything you need to provide the best, most efficient service to the customers?
Thanks, Jess. And Scott asked about the recording of the webinar. And yes, we will be sending out an email. It'll actually be coming from Claudia. It's probably going to say, so what's next? And you'll receive a link to a page where you'll be able to see the recording. You'll also be able to get a PDF of Jess's slides if you want to jot some notes down as well. And that will be coming out by end of day tomorrow for you all. And you guys can rewatch there or share with others that you feel could benefit from the information. Jess like she said, executive sponsorship is huge. So it's definitely something that you guys can share. So awesome. Well, it's good to see you, Scott.
I was just going to say the same thing. Good to see you, Scott. You're welcome, Meg. Glad you enjoyed the content.
Awesome. If you have any other questions for Jess, we have a few more minutes. Go ahead and throw those in the Q&A. As a reminder, if you're interested in learning more about how to work on the implementation in your organization or any of our 10 commandments, service vision, world-class internal culture, you can schedule a strategy session with Claudia at tdg.click/Claudia. And if you are an attendee of the Customer Service Revolution Conference, I just wanted to give a reminder that today is the last day to rewatch any of the presentations. Those will expire at 11:59 Pacific time tonight. Jody says, see you Wednesday, Jess. Awesome. I know Jess is excited for their workshop this week. It's been really great to do all of these workshops virtually with our clients. And some of our clients are starting to have in-person meetings, of course, with precautions in place. So it's really great to be ending 2020 on a positive note after all we have all been through this year. So, all right. Well, if there are we got one more question, Jess. So Becca says they have hasty customer experience goals thrown at leadership without proper implementation and had to backtrack to customer service basics. Do you have any tips on how they can handle that?
Yes. So your customer service basics, I would say do a mini workshop for your nevers and always. I'm not sure if you have those yet, but those are quick wins. Those everyone is able to, they're short, simple statements that everyone gets behind, regardless of where you fall on the organizational chart or which department you work in, or if you're client facing or not. So creating those gets you one set of standards that's universal throughout your organization. So those provide the quickest return on investment, I would say. I think that was your question. The only other way I would read that question is okay, I hope I answered that right. The only other thing I would recommend is the negative cues exercise. If you haven't done that exercise yet, it looks at and dissects all of your signs, your website, your agreements, your terminology, your communication patterns. Look for any thing that could be perceived as negative. So whether it's like uniform or cleanliness, or simply just saying no, or using too much industry jargon or acronyms when your customer doesn't really understand that. Those are all forms of negative cues. So anything that could be perceived as negative from a customer's perspective, look at those and try to turn those into positive ones. So one of my clients found out that at one of their buildings locations, the list of contacts wasn't correct. So clients would arrive and dial 123, and clients wouldn't be getting who they thought they were getting. That's a negative cue, right? Makes it difficult for the client. Another one was when they looked on Google, the times weren't right of their hours of operation. That's a negative cue from a client's perspective. So those are some quick wins too. Think in your customer's shoes, look at those negative cues. My sister works for a restaurant and she was just complaining the other day, I have to be at work at 11, but I swear we don't ever get any customers until noon. It's stupid. I might as well just show up late. And I looked on their website, or I Googled the restaurant, and the restaurant said they don't even open until noon. I said, well, you're not getting customers until noon because the Google is telling people your restaurant doesn't open until noon. So like, what negative cues do you have that you could turn into positive or you could change? Those are some quick wins that I think leadership would be happy to see change. Did I answer your question? I hate not being able to see you, Rebecca. Nicole, any other way you would read that question or anything to add?
No. And I actually have Rebecca's email. We were exchanging some messages earlier today, Jess. So I'll get the two of you connected. That way we can expand on that for you, Rebecca, to make sure that we answered that for you.
Yeah, I think some of those little things that I just shared, they seem so minor, but they do result in give big results. And especially if those things are done consistently, if the nevers and always are standards that that they are non-negotiable, that we have to do consistently, that's the most important part. And then I think that provides results as far as implementation goes.
Thanks, Jess. Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great week. I know for all of us in the States, it's going to be a first long week after a holiday week, but have a great week. Mondays are always a positive way to start your week. Don't look at them negatively. And we will be sending out the recording and the follow-up where you can schedule with Claudia if you are interested by end of day tomorrow. And as always, if you guys need anything at all, we are always at your service. And I hope you have a great week. Thanks, everybody.